Hello, my name is Monica Wilson, and this is my testimony series. I have been through quite a lot in this life. I have a testimony unlike any other, and I've known for a very long time that I've only experienced a lot of the things that I've gone through for the glory of the Lord, to share my experience and to show His favor over my life. But I've been waiting to start my testimony series because I didn't feel like I was in the space, as far as my relationship with the Lord, to be trying to guide other people to Him. Like, I'm not reading my word every day. I'm not praying every day like I used to. How am I supposed to be sharing my testimony and leading more people to you when I'm still in my process of being led back home? But last night, I had yet another dream about witchcraft. And it can't wait anymore. It simply cannot wait anymore. So I come from a very narcissistic family structure. And if you know anything about the spirit realm, you know that narcissism is not a demon. Narcissism is a legion of demons that work together. And that would be why there are so many different types of narcissism: antagonistic, covert. But that's also why, no matter what type of narcissist the person that you're dealing with is, there are certain things that all of them do. So for example, manipulation, gaslighting, smear campaigning, breadcrumbing, triangulation. These are all things that every single type of narcissist will do because they are all connected. Now, I'm going to share the dream that I had last night because it was most recent, but from there, I'm going to start from the very beginning. I have an older brother, and there was a time in our life where we were very close. He was my best friend. I loved him. I still love him to this day so much. But now he's a very different person than he was when we were growing up, right? But in this dream, my brother and I were joined at the hip. We were in some sort of house that actually is not familiar to me. And usually when I have this type of dream, it's in a familiar setting. But that's besides the point. In this dream, my brother and I were connected. We were going everywhere together. We were doing everything together. But there was a certain family member of mine, and we're going to call him Q. This family member kept trying to unalive my brother, right? He had a very big Michael Myers type kitchen knife, and he continued attempting to unalive my brother. Multiple times in this dream, I had to stand between them and fight him off so that he would not be able to unalive my brother. At one point in this dream, my cousin was outside, and I shut and I locked the door, and my brother was standing next to me. And somehow, some way, my cousin was able to grab my brother through the closed door and pull him outside. And they're fighting, like my brother is trying to defend himself. I can't recall if he had a knife at this point, but I remember my brother comes back to the door and he's like, "Monica, let me in." And I was confused. I was like, the door was shut and locked. Like, how did you get outside? But I remember unlocking and opening the door and then closing it again before my cousin could come back inside of the house. So next, I remember going into the bathroom with my brother. My brother wanted to take a shower, but he understandably did not feel safe. So we're in the bathroom, and I remember that there were two entrances to this bathroom. One door here, one door here. And the water is running. And I'm just being a little sister. I'm like, "Bro, you funky. You need to get in the shower. You stink. I'm not playing with you." And he's laughing, and we're just kind of acting the way that we used to, right? My cousin comes to the entrance to the right, and he opens the door and he peeps his head in. And at first, everything seems innocent. But at the very last minute, he pulls a knife out, right? And again, he's trying to attack my brother. So I have to fight him off once again, and then I shut the door. After this, I remember leaving my brother in the bathroom and going into the bedroom where my cousin was. For whatever reason, he was laying in a bed, and I'm talking to him, and we're actually having a conversation about jealousy. He's like, "Oh yeah, people in this life are weird, and they'll try to attack you, and they'll try to ruin your life just based off of jealousy." This is a conversation that we had in this dream where my cousin is actively attempting to unalive my brother. And that really stuck out to me. So I wake up and I remember all of this, and I know immediately off rip, anytime that there is a weapon involved, anytime where I or somebody in my family is being attacked, and anytime I wake up remembering everything that happened in my dream, it was a message from the Lord, right? And so I wake up and I'm just like, whoa, this is not the first dream about witchcraft that I've had, but it is the first one where my brother was the one that was being attacked, and I was there to act as a protector for him. Witchcraft is something that is very normalized in today's world. It is modern. It's popular. I remember when Sephora was selling witch kits in their store. It's something that is very, very normalized. And I want to make it very clear that society is only normalizing this to pull God's children further away from Him. Now, witchcraft is a plethora of things. It can be spell work, it can be crystals, it can be tarot cards, it can be believing and putting power into things outside of God. So when people say, oh, burning sage is demonic, not necessarily. Burning sage is normal. Sage is a plant. But it is the belief that burning the sage is cleansing negative energy that is demonic. We live in a society that is demonic, right? So a lot of the things that are encouraged are not of God. A lot of the things that we see in the media, in society, are not of God. And I find that in this world, nobody wants to be left out. We all want to be included. We all want to feel a part of society. We all want to be validated. We fall short turning to the world for this validation as opposed to the Lord. I was raised by a demonized woman. So I was born with spiritual gifts, one of which being God's gift of discernment, the other of which being the ability to see demonic influence on people. The first time I ever saw demonic influence on someone, it was my mother, and I was literally 5 years old. So, backstory, my mom was in the military for the first few years of my life. And so I remember living with her for a little bit and then living with a few of my different aunties. But the majority of my childhood, up until the age of 6, I was with my favorite auntie. We're going to call her Cece, right? So I was living with Cece. Cece literally adored me. We dressed alike. She would do our hair the same way. I genuinely loved my auntie so, so much. And I remember actually thinking that she was my mom. I remember my mom walking into the room, and she crouches over and she opens her arms out and she looks at me and she's like, my baby girl, hi baby. And I remember looking up at her, and I looked into her eyes, and I saw what I call in my book the influence, and it terrified me. And I remember running to my auntie and I screamed, and I remember trying to climb her literally like a ladder, and I was looking back at my mom like, who is this woman? Why is she here? And what is she carrying? Now, at the point that all of this is happening, when I'm looking back at my mother, she is actively glaring at me. Like, she hates my guts. I know now that that wasn't my mom that was looking at me that way. That was the spirits that she possesses. And it was more of a, oh, so you can see me. Got it. You're going to be a problem, aren't you? Right? But literally from that day forward, my mom treated me terribly. And I wish that I was joking. I wish that there was something else that I could pinpoint her switch in behavior towards. But after this, she did not want to hold me. She did not want to talk to me. I remember that I think we stayed with my auntie for a few days before my mom took us to Texas. And I don't remember having much of any interaction with her while she was there. I actually remember her taking my brother to go and do several things. And my auntie was like, you can't do that. Like, she's going to remember this when she gets older. And I don't remember what my mom said in response, but it was very dismissive. She was like, okay, whatever, I'm going with my son. So now I'm going to fast forward to the day that my mom actually took me and my brother from my auntie's house, and we moved to Texas. The first thing that I remember is that when we got in the car, she took my brother's booster seat from the back seat and she put it in the front, right? But I was supposed to sit in the back. And I remember that she would be talking to my brother and interacting with my brother and laughing with my brother. But the moment that I said anything, she would get very quiet. A few times she would turn up the music and pretend like I literally wasn't speaking. But then she would let a little bit of time go by, and then she would turn the music back down and re engage with my brother. So, very soon, very early in my life, I'm already experiencing narcissistic abuse. We already spoke about narcissism and how narcissism is caused by a literal legion of demons. But there are several ideas in society that stem from narcissism itself. The first of which being white supremacy. Following closely after that is racism, colorism, xenophobia, texturism, even. All of these different ideas of what you need to look like to be worthy and accepted and valuable in the eyes of society. According to American society and the consistent work that they have put in to destroy the Black family and as a result the Black community, acceptable Black American women do not look like me. We have been taught colorism literally since slavery. And so as a result of this, many Black men in America date and marry and reproduce with lighter skinned women. And usually a child that is born of a lighter skinned mother will be 1 to 2 shades lighter than me with a looser hair texture and a lighter eye color, right? That is where the ambiguity lies. Another acceptable form of Black women in America is those that are mixed. This is ambiguous in every sense of the word. There's racial ambiguity, there's ethnic ambiguity. You also cannot exactly pinpoint their nationality. Now, on the flip side of this, there are Black Americans that are of a darker skin tone. These Black Americans can usually pass as African or Haitian or Caribbean, especially if that skin tone is paired with a looser hair texture. When you look at me, you can tell with just one glance that I am a Black American woman, right? And I love this about myself. I love my skin. I love my hair. I love everything that is me. But society has a very big issue with this. So in reality, my mother began treating me the way that society would from the literal age of 6. Now, I don't remember exactly where we went when we went to Texas, but I do remember that we ended up settling in a town called Mineral Wells. That is the town that I grew up in. And we ended up there because my mother was homeless. I remember she was calling around to a bunch of different homeless shelters saying like, hey, do you have any space for a single mom with 2 kids? She ended up calling the homeless shelter in Mineral Wells, Texas, and Papa Ted, my first ever pastor, the first man that ever baptized me, answered the phone. And I remember he said to my mother, well, I don't know where I'm going to put you, but if you get in your car, by the time you get here, I will have somewhere for you and your babies. So we get in the car and we drive to Mineral Wells, and we get there, we get settled. And I want to say that we lived in this shelter for about the first year to year and a half that we were in Mineral Wells. Now, one of the first things that I noticed was that I was not allowed to receive love. I was not allowed to receive genuine care. People were supposed to see me as a troubled child, and that is about it. I've always been an avid reader. I've loved reading literally my whole life. And in this shelter, there was a nursery where the kids would play. But we didn't have many books there. There was maybe like 5 to 10 books. So me, being the avid reader that I was, I read all of them. Within literally a few days, I read all of them. And so one day I was sitting there and I was reading a book, and Papa Ted walks by and he was like, well, Monica, didn't you already read that one? And I was like, well, yeah, but I read everything else, so I'm going to read it again. And Papa Ted leaves, and he returns maybe 20 minutes later with a big crate of books, just overflowing with books, right? And he puts them in the hallway, and he calls me out of the nursery, and I come out, and he's like, I got these for you. And I was ecstatic. I remember I ran and I gave him a hug, and I was just so very happy. My mother did not like this. I remember she sent me to my room, and she kind of scolded Papa Ted in a way. She was like, oh, she's been getting in trouble in school. You don't need to reward her for bad behavior. I actually had not been getting in trouble in school, but this is what my mother began to do very early on in my life to kind of smear campaign me and paint me out to be a certain way to other people. And looking back, I can honestly say that she did this to justify her mistreatment of me. Part 3 coming soon.